before, into disciplines and areas that it never was before, and establish a higher way of life.
Make a global impact today with your sponsorship of Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project. For every home you sponsor, you send the gospel on. You become the reason someone receives life, a second chance, and finds Jesus. Through the dynamic Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project, we've been able to expand our global mission, touching more souls, more regions, and producing a wave of powerful testimonies from people whose lives have been forever changed. Your financial support as a Loveworld USA partner is not just generous, it's supernatural power for global impact. Let's keep sending the gospel into every home through the Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project. Sign up today and sponsor any of the following categories.
It's time for you to give the right sacrifice, the right seed, because it's time for you to get the right harvest.
You can sponsor Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project by calling or going on our website now. Sign up to be Pastor Chris in 1 Billion Homes Project partner today. God bless you.
Welcome back. A Christian worship concert led by singer-activist Sean Fucht is set for Seattle's Gasworks Park on Saturday as LGBTQ groups press city leaders to revoke his permit. Fucht, known for his pandemic-era lettuce worship rallies and support for President Trump, is bringing his Revive in 25 tour to the city after 8 Canadian stops were canceled earlier this month. Capitol Hill Pride Director Charlotte Lefebvre called the event malicious harassment and incitement toward LGBTQ residents. Mayor Bruce Harrell said the city will not cancel a permitted gathering based on anticipated speech, citing First Amendment protections. Any group has a right to use one of our public assets, to have an assembly. The Lavender Rights Project and allied groups plan a counter event. City officials noted they asked organizers to move from Capitol Hill's Cal Anderson Park for safety reasons, adding that Seattle strongly celebrates and supports the LGBTQ+ community while upholding speech rights. The concert follows recent tensions around faith gatherings in Seattle. Police arrested 23 people during May clashes at Cal Anderson Park tied to a separate religious rally and counter-protest, and the city closed Gasworks Park ahead of a 2020 Fucht event over COVID rules, a move he denounced as targeting Christians. Honestly, I won't even get into the picking of sides between the LGBTQIA+ community and, of course, Sean Fucht here. This is, more than anything, simply a case of protecting the First Amendment. You can't ban somebody, again, because he went and got the necessary permits. The city approved it. He paid all the necessary fees. I mean, he went through all the necessary procedures, but because his message speaks against the community, that's why the Lavender Project wants the city to ban him, which again would go against the freedom of expression, because as long as you're not there to incite violence, so he's not going to be mentioning that they should be burned, that they should be beaten, that they should be assaulted, or using fighting words again to incite a type of riot against them. He's more than clear to speak against them if he wants, or to say that, of course, the LGBTQ community is living in sin, that the way that they live is wrong, because again, anybody is free to say that. It's well within their freedom of expression. So it's good to see, of course, although Seattle does claim that they support the LGBTQ+ community, that they also support freedom of expression and protecting civil liberties in America when it seems more now than ever under attack. And now we'll take a look at some of the stories that made the headlines this week. President Donald Trump has signed executive orders aimed at rolling back cashless bail in Washington, D.C., and pressuring jurisdictions nationwide to abandon similar policies. A White House fact sheet says the D.C.-focused order ties future federal funding services or approvals to changes in the city's pretrial practices and instructs agencies to place arrestees into federal custody to the fullest extent permitted by law. A companion directive tells federal departments to identify grants that could be suspended or terminated in places that retain cashless bail. The actions come amid an expanded federal anti-crime posture in the Capitol, including deployments of National Guard troops and stepped-up enforcement initiatives. Trump and his allies argue cashless bail fuels repeat offending and undermines public safety. Critics call the directives federal overreach that will fall hardest on low-income defendants. D.C. has operated a cashless bail framework since 1992, with judges weighing danger to the community and flight risk rather than a defendant's ability to pay. The D.C. Council extended pretrial detention authority in July as part of a broader public safety package. Legal tests are likely on multiple fronts, including the administration's leverage over federal funds, the extent of federal custody and local arrests, and long-standing Supreme Court precedent protecting flag burning as expressive conduct. The Justice Department is expected to issue implementation guidance in the coming days, while affected jurisdictions weigh potential lawsuits. The White House says the measures are part of a wider effort to reassert federal authority in the Capitol and to prod other cities to follow suit. Watch this.
All over the country, cashless bail, we're ending it, but we're starting by ending it in D.C., and that we have the right to do through federalization. Okay, let's go. Could I ask you to say exactly what this is?
Of course. So, as you've consistently identified, sir, cashless bail policies are a key driver of the disorder we see on city streets all over America. Catch and release system allows criminals to keep going back out onto the street and reoffending. What this executive order does, it charges your attorney general with identifying jurisdictions all over the country that have cashless bail policies, and then it withholds or revokes federal funds and grants that are flowing to those jurisdictions to ensure that we're only supporting the people who have reasonable common sense policies around crime.
So what area does it cover?
Potentially anywhere that has a cashless bail policy. So some of the largest cities, some of the most left-wing states in America
Almost
have adopted.
all of them, right?
Illinois would be a great example of that, sir.
Oh, they have a great cashless bail. You don't even have to go to court sometimes. No, Illinois, I love that state. It's a great state, but it's run so badly by Pritzker. They threw him out of the family business, and he becomes governor. Now he wants to run for president. I don't think that's going to happen. Okay, we'll sign right here, right?
Sir.
It might seem harsh to some, but this is a strong and positive stance on President Donald Trump. Part of the situation with bail is that, again, it serves as a deterrent from committing crimes. There was a video that we played on the network during the week where there was a man who was in police custody in handcuffs sitting inside the police car, I think with the door open, and he was claiming, again, that he was going to go to court, he was going to see a judge, they were going to, again, get ready and set the trial in motion, and he was going to walk out because they have cashless bail, so he wouldn't have to pay anything. When you have criminals, again, this is a repeat offender because he'd already done it before, gone to jail and came back out. When you have criminals or people who can commit crimes and positively say without any fear in their heart that I already know how this goes. I'm not going to have to put up any money, so I'm not going to have to spend any time in jail. So until we get to my trial, all my money's going towards my lawyer and my defense, and I can just walk out. It's almost an incentive. It's like you're giving people a 0% APR loan on crime. Because at the end of the day, until that trial comes, they know that whatever crime they commit, they have the opportunity for cashless bail. It's the same thing as telling somebody, hey, go ahead and buy whatever you want on your credit card. We're giving you 0% APR. You don't have to pay. You can just keep it there indefinitely. Who wouldn't just go out and splurge knowing that, hey, well, whenever I get the money, I'll make the minimum payments, but there's nothing being added to my bill. That's exactly what happens with cashless bail, and we've literally heard examples of it. So when you look at it from that light, where a criminal can tell during an interview, again, this is something that they said in public, with no fear in their heart, that they know how the system works, that they know that they're going to get out on cashless bail and they'll be back home in a day or two. There's clearly an issue, and it's good on the president for working to address it. President Donald Trump has defended the federal government's 10% stake in Intel, calling it a windfall for taxpayers and vowing to pursue similar arrangements. In a Morning Post, he said the position, which he valued at roughly $11 billion, cost the government zero out of pocket and pledged to make deals like that all day long. Intel shares are up about 28% this month amid the announcement and broader bets on a U.S. chip-making revival. The stake combines common equity with support tied to the Chips and Science Act and is intended to shore up domestic semiconductor manufacturing. White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett said more transactions of this kind are possible, potentially beyond semiconductors. Supporters argued the move converts traditional grants into an asset that could appreciate, aligning public investment with taxpayer upside. Skeptics counter that nothing in the CHIPS law authorizes the government to buy stock and warns of conflict when Washington becomes a corporate shareholder. Former NEC Director Larry Lindsey defended the structure as swapping subsidies for equity, while Representative Thomas Massey criticized it as mission creep that could compromise privacy and competition if regulators play favorites. Intel, led by CEO Lip Bhutan, said the partnership underscores its commitment to keeping leading-edge logic R&D and manufacturing in the U.S. The company is still stabilizing its finances, reporting a second quarter loss of $2.9 billion on $12.9 billion in revenue. The administration portrays the investment as both industrial policy and a template for future deals designed to accelerate strategic manufacturing while giving taxpayers a direct stake in the outcome. Let's take a look.
In a move stirring both applause and alarm, the Trump administration has defended its $11 billion equity stake in chipmaker Intel, making the U.S. government the company's largest shareholder. Intel has warned that the deal could damage its global business, which relies heavily on international sales, and could even trigger backlash from foreign governments. The company also noted the government's stake could grow larger if domestic manufacturing targets aren't met. Despite those concerns, White House officials signaled that this is just the beginning.
It sounds like a good deal, of course, because the United States has now provided Intel an incentive to keep its chip making in the United States. And of course, it also gives them more cash and funding as part of an investment, not a subsidy. So again, taxpayer funds now have a return on them instead of, again, it just being money that goes in with no return or with no outcome expected. It's an investment now, not a subsidy. But it also, again, brings manufacturing jobs to the United States because now Intel has an incentive to keep their manufacturing, and the majority of it, especially for logic R&D, in the United States. And also, now it gives the U.S. an edge in the AI and semiconductor race. Because, of course, as you know, 80%, or if you don't know, 80% of the semiconductors, which are, the chips and things that go into cars, which is, again, what caused the car prices to rise during the COVID pandemic, that go into GPUs, which is what most AI models run on, that go into most technologies nowadays, are built in Taiwan by TSMC, which is the Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing company. So by having a company now in the United States that can produce those semiconductors, you reduce reliance on Taiwan, who of course is now facing international pressure from China, and with an invasion looking imminent, it would pretty much, again, give China control over the world's semiconductor manufacturing production line. In essence, giving China the ultimate authority over AI and cutting-edge technology in the world. So now this is President Trump's counteraction against it, being proactive rather than counteractive. Of course, we do have to be careful to ensure that contract is still awarded fairly, and just because the United States government has a stake in Intel doesn't mean that Intel now jumps the line or unfairly receives government contracts that they're not qualified for, or that other companies are more qualified for. But all in all, it's a good incentive for the United States and for Intel. We'll be right back with more news. Be sure to stay tuned.
It's easy to set up, quick to start, and packed with value. Smarter streaming starts here with the Alpha TV Stick. Just plug and stream anytime, anywhere. Discover a curated lineup of content designed to inspire, live broadcasts and global events, inspirational films and series, children's programming, healing and teaching sessions, all on demand.
With millions of downloads worldwide, the Alpha TV app is transforming lives across the globe. And now, we're on a mission to reach 1 billion downloads of the Alpha TV app, and you can be part of it. Join the global wave with 1 billion Alpha TV app downloads worldwide. Bring the higher life into every home. Order your Alpha TV Stick today and experience smarter streaming. Alpha, the higher life is here.
Welcome back. The Transportation Department has warned California, Washington, and New Mexico they could lose millions in federal funds unless they begin enforcing federal ELP, English Language Proficiency rules, for commercial drivers within 30 days. citing failures uncovered after a deadly August 12th crash in Florida. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said the ultimatum is about road safety. We need to make sure those driving big rigs can understand the road signs and have been well trained. Officials said the Florida crash involved Harjinder Singh, a 28-year-old Indian national alleged to be in the U.S. unlawfully, who attempted an unauthorized U-turn on the Florida Turnpike, which then jackknifed and collided with a minivan, killing 3 people. After the collision, Singh failed a CDL test, Duffy said. According to the department, Singh had obtained commercial licensing in California and Washington and was stopped for speeding in New Mexico in July, but was not taken out of service despite an inability to speak English. The ELP rule, in effect since June, requires non-proficient drivers to be placed out of service. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration notified the 3 states that they must submit corrective plans within 30 days or face funding cuts. Potential reductions would include $33 million for California, $10.5 million for Washington, and $7 million for New Mexico, officials stated. Additional steps are available if the states fail to comply, though the department did not detail what those would be. Duffy framed the action as a narrow compliance push rather than a broad penalty, emphasizing the department doesn't want to take away money from states, but will do so if necessary to enforce federal safety standards. The affected states were given notice of the timeline and expected to respond with enforcement plans aligned to the ELP requirement. Watch this.
This is about keeping people safe on the road. Your families, your kids, your spouses, your loved ones, your friends, we all use the roadway. And we need to make sure that big rigs, semis, can understand the road signs, that they've been well trained, and that when they're pulled over by law enforcement, they're stopped by law enforcement, or there's a crash and law enforcement responds, they can effectively communicate what they have on their rig. There might be a history that they have to be able to communicate.
Again, Sean Duffy is spot on. This is something that can't be controversial. I've heard some critics calling it, again, discrimination, but the matter of fact is this. It's very simple. If you go to China and you can't speak Mandarin or any other, or Cantonese, or you can't read Mandarin or Cantonese, you probably, more than likely, wouldn't be able to obtain a commercial driving license because you wouldn't be able to read the road signs. In America, we have clearance signs, that state that, again, if your truck is this high, you can't pass. We have some signs that say no trucks allowed because, again, it's a danger to those on the road, or the roads aren't built to support that type of infrastructure that trucks would require. So if you can't read that, you're not only putting yourself and your product at risk, you're now also endangering others' lives. Simply put, that EDP on the English proficiency requirement has to be mandatory. Because, you wouldn't trust somebody who can't read to take you somewhere if they can't even read the directions to where they're going. So now how much more somebody controlling, again, tons, a multi-ton mechanical machine that, if used wrongly, can lead to the loss of lives, as we've seen. There can be absolutely no controversy about this. That should be mandatory in every state. A federal judge has thrown out the Trump administration's lawsuit against all 15 federal judges in Maryland, calling the case potentially calamitous and an affront to constitutional tradition. U.S. District Judge Thomas Cullen, assigned from Virginia because every Maryland district judge was named, said the executive branch lacked authority to bring the suit and that the judges are immune from such claims. The administration had asked the court to block a standing order by Maryland's chief district judge that pauses deportations until 4 p.m. on the second business day after migrants file habeas petitions, arguing the rule hamstrung immigration enforcement. Cullen said the proper remedy was to appeal the order, not sue a co-equal branch, writing that allowing the case to proceed would offend the rule of law. Cullen also criticized recent attacks on the judiciary from administration officials, noting statements that labeled judges rogue and unhinged. The Maryland bench was represented by former U.S. Solicitor General Paul Clement, who argued the lawsuit sought to curb judicial review as the administration pursues rapid removals. The White House did not immediately comment. The deportation pause order, issued amid a surge of after-hours filings, aims to maintain court jurisdiction and ensure access to counsel while the government responds. Tuesday's ruling leaves that order in place. The Justice Department can appeal to the 4th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. Let's take a look.
The DOJ claims that the state was slowing down deportation efforts. A federal court in Virginia with an appointee of President Trump dismissed the May order. The Trump administration argued that it would interfere with the executive's branch powers and violate various rules. The judge cited that the administration chose a, quote, different and more confrontational path.
California Assembly Minority Leader James Gallagher said Wednesday he will introduce a resolution, H.R. 23, to divide the state into two, a liberal coastal California and a conservative inland California. He framed the plan as a direct response to Governor Gavin Newsom's push to redraw the state's congressional map mid-decade. Under Gallagher's outline, the new coastal state would follow a line generally just west of Interstate 5 and include San Francisco, Silicon Valley, Los Angeles, Sonoma, Orange County, and San Diego. The inland state would encompass Sutter County, Gallagher's home base, Truckee, and Kern County, along with the Inland Empire counties of San Bernardino, Riverside, and Imperial. Preliminary tallies cited by backers put coastal California at roughly 29.5 million people and inland California around 10 million. Gallagher argues the split would protect rural representation he says is threatened by Democrats' bid to bypass California's voter-approved independent redistricting commission. Republican leaders have called the governor's efforts a mid-decade power grab. Democrats say their plan counters GOP map changes advancing in states like Texas. Even if the resolution passes, creating a new state would face steep legal and political hurdles, including approval by California's legislature and the U.S. Congress under Article 4 of the Constitution. Gallagher is slated to detail the proposal at a Sacramento news conference. Watch this.
In the California Assembly, James Gallagher has an alternate plan to Governor Gavin Newsom's California redistricting plan set to go before voters this November. Instead of carving up individual congressional districts, Gallagher is proposing to split the state in two, calling it a, quote, two-state solution. Gallagher's plan would cleave the state into two distinct parts, with the bluer coastal counties separated from the more GOP-heavy inland portions of the state. Gallagher is expected to outline his two-state plan at a news conference in Sacramento tomorrow.
This sounds like a lovely proposal in all fairness, but the likelihood of this passing is highly unlikely. The required process is, again, from the California state legislature all the way to the United States Congress to create a new state, which, I mean, would divide so many, is long. I'll leave it at that. Of course, you would also be dividing the fourth largest economy in the world, because, again, California, when comparing it to countries, has the fourth largest economy, just behind the United States, of course, as a country. Then you have China, and then you have Germany, and you have California. So that probably isn't going to go over well with the state legislature or the United States Congress as a whole. But to be quite frank, it's not necessarily a bad idea. Liberal California, coastal California, would be able to keep their ideals. They'd be able to, again, having the majority, 3 times as many people as the inland California would have, they would still, again, have a majority voting power in the United States Congress. Of course, it would also be able to enforce a lot more of their ideals in their own land, while inland California would be able to identify more with their politics than they've been able to do because of the overwhelming majority of the liberal agenda in California. Good idea. The possibility of it happening, slim to none. And now, let's take a look at the weather update. And to end the news today, a quick recap of the headlines. The appeals court rules most Trump tariffs are illegal, leaving duties in place for appeal. The HUD orders a 30-day audit to verify immigration status in public housing. A Boston whistleblower warns of crime spillover as Healy and Wu resist federal crackdown. Representative Maxine Waters urges the 25th Amendment review after President Trump moves to oust the Fed's Lisa Cook. And Seattle upholds Christian worship rally permit despite activist pressure, citing the First Amendment. And that's News Plus for today. Remember to join us same time tomorrow for more. I'm TGK Andre. Good day, and God bless you.